first to the plane tragedy in India, where 241 people died.
Ahmedabad, in that 1 minute when the AI-171 crashed, leading to the loss of life in total of about 270 people.
After 30 consecutive days of investigation, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau of India, AAIB, has finally spoken, and the conclusion has shaken the entire aviation industry. With just a brief action lasting exactly 1 second, 2 fuel switches were triggered, the entire flight spiraled into disaster. Once again, the name Boeing appears in the investigation report, and this time, in a situation that no one can justify, what exactly happened in the sky that day? Boeing may deny responsibility, but the evidence cannot be denied. We will expose the entire truth in this video. No one could imagine that a series of actions taking place in less than a few seconds could bring down one of the most advanced aircraft in the world. According to the preliminary report just released, the official cause of the tragedy involving Air India flight AI-171 stems from an act never before recorded in any global commercial aviation record. Both fuel switches, which play a vital role in supplying fuel to the 2 jet engines, were switched from run mode to full cutoff mode within just 3 seconds after takeoff. Data from the FDR black box confirms. As soon as the Boeing 787-8 lifted off from the Ahmedabad runway, the fuel switch of engine number 1 was suddenly turned off. An inexplicable action, especially during the critical phase of the flight. Just 1 second later, the control switch of the second engine was also moved to the fuel cutoff position. Both engines lost thrust almost simultaneously, causing the entire aircraft to lose power just seconds after leaving the ground. The consequence was immediate. The aircraft was unable to exceed a speed threshold of 180 knots in the first minute, a figure too low to maintain the necessary lift. Instead of continuing to climb, the aircraft began to shake violently and lurch out of control. In less than half a minute afterward, the Dreamliner completely lost controllability and plunged straight into a densely populated residential area outside Ahmedabad, causing a massive explosion that destroyed the entire impact zone. In the final moments of despair, the CVR black box captured a brief emergency signal. Mayday. Then came a chilling silence. No further warning from the pilot. No emergency landing request. Not a single signal reflecting a critical situation in the cockpit. A second chance never came. And all 242 people, including passengers and crew, had no way back. But what caused the investigation team to pause, doubt, and become confused was the eerily silent response of the technical system. Not a single error warning was triggered. No software reported a fault. No sensor detected an anomaly. The entire FADEC electronic flight control system, considered the brain connecting the cockpit to the engines, remained fully operational. All support systems such as pressure sensors, hydraulic actuators, ignition, and even the fuel supply, all recorded completely stable parameters. The fuel tank was also confirmed to show no unusual signs. No leaks, no water, no ice, no contamination. So, who performed the act of shutting off the fuel, and why? This very detail has made the incident more puzzling than ever. The flight crew on the ill-fated flight were all seasoned professionals, with no signs whatsoever of losing control or panic. Captain Sumit Sabharwal, a former senior flight instructor, had accumulated over 15,600 flight hours, most of which were on the 787. First Officer Clive Kunder, though younger, had also logged more than 3,400 hours of flight time, with extensive experience in critical phases such as takeoff and landing. What sends chills down the spine is the recording from the CVR black box, just seconds before the aircraft hit the ground. Why was the fuel cut off? Not me? Both sentences were filled with worry and confusion. But it is impossible to determine who said which, because no one survived to clarify. Both the captain and the first officer perished on the spot. What remained were system recordings, alarm sounds blaring repeatedly, and one question that renders all hypotheses meaningless: who or what truly caused this Boeing 787 to plunge into the ground less than a minute after takeoff? There is no technical evidence suggesting a system error could have automatically cut the fuel, so all suspicion began to focus on the human factor. Is this merely an operational error under extreme pressure, or is it a sign of something darker, a deliberate act? If we argue that this was simply a mistake by the flight crew, then an immediate paradox arises. Why were both fuel switches, each controlling a separate engine, turned off almost simultaneously, with an interval of exactly 1 second? According to the design principles of the Boeing 787, each of these switches has a flip-type safety cover to prevent accidental operation during flight. To switch from run to cutoff mode, the pilot must apply force to lift the safety cover, then pull or push in the correct direction. This is a fully intentional sequence of actions, very difficult to perform by mistake, especially for those with thousands of hours in the cockpit. Not stopping there, the two switches are positioned nearly 40 centimeters apart on the central control panel. That means two separate actions are required, unless someone deliberately used both hands at the same time. On-site inspection results also confirmed there was no mechanical failure that could have caused the switches to turn off automatically. The physical structure was completely intact, with no broken parts or signs of jamming. This means the act of turning off the switches had to be done directly by someone, or triggered by an electronic signal within the control system. And this very factor has raised a new hypothesis: the possibility of a ghost input, a virtual incorrect or noise-induced signal from software or peripheral devices. If an abnormal signal was sent to the fuel controller right at the moment the aircraft left the ground, then it would be a system-level technical failure and extremely dangerous. But if there is no software error, then where did the fuel cutoff command come from? At this point, experts are forced to confront a more frightening possibility: someone in the cockpit, a member of the flight crew, intentionally carried out this act. This hypothesis immediately brings to mind shocking tragedies, such as the Germanwings 9525 incident, 2015, when the co-pilot deliberately locked the cockpit door and steered the plane straight into a mountain, or the Horizon Air Q400 event, 2018, where a ground technician unauthorizedly took off and crashed the aircraft due to lack of piloting skills. Similar to those disturbing cases, the investigation team of AI-171 currently cannot rule out any possibility. Therefore, the authorities have decided to reconstruct the entire flight scenario using a cockpit simulator, accurately replicating the control operations, vibration shocks, and sensor data exactly as at the time of the incident. At the same time, the black box recordings, especially the series of electrical signals and command lines captured in the final 10 seconds, will be redecoded at a higher analytical resolution in order to trace any abnormal signals that may have appeared in the central control system. The investigation has now entered a critical phase. And if the final conclusion confirms the existence of deliberate interference, whether from a human or from the system itself, then AI-171 will no longer be considered a mere accident, but a terrifying milestone in the history of global aviation safety. The doubts now no longer revolve solely around the human factor, but are gradually shifting toward the very design, structure, and technical warning systems of the entire aviation industry. Because if both pilots did not intentionally perform the fuel cutoff or had no justifiable reason to do so, then the next assumption that must be considered is the possibility that the error lies within the fuel system design itself. Few people know that. In 2018, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, issued a special notice regarding the design of the fuel switch installed on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. In that notice, the FAA warned of the risk that the switch could automatically disengage due to strong vibration, equipment failure, or mechanical deviation arising during use. What is noteworthy is that this warning was not categorized as mandatory. Therefore, not all airlines implemented it seriously. In the case of Air India's fleet, internal records show that the fuel switch inspection procedure had never been fully or regularly carried out like other critical systems. For the next 6 years, Boeing also did not release any updates to improve the safety level of this switch type. The details revealed in the preliminary report not only stunned the aviation community, but also immediately sparked a chain reaction on a global scale. Just a few hours after the document was released, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation of India, DGCA, issued a comprehensive inspection order for the entire fleet of Boeing 787 Dreamliners operated by Air India, a total of 33 aircraft. This special inspection not only focused on the cockpit, but extended to the entire fuel supply system, engine compartments, central control panels, and electronic sensor modules. All components had to be re-evaluated, even the smallest suspected points. In parallel, Boeing and the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, also officially joined the process of rechecking the entire system. However, as of now, neither party has issued any temporary grounding orders, nor have they released any emergency maintenance recommendations. This very situation has triggered a wave of controversy, as some experts argue that delaying action in the face of a potential design flaw could cause many other airlines to continue facing similar dangers. The developments of the incident also quickly moved beyond the technical scope. The Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, of India has launched an investigation, working closely with the Accident Investigation Team to determine whether there was sabotage, external interference, or even intentional tampering inside the cockpit. At the same time, the Transportation Committee of the Indian Parliament summoned senior representatives from Air India, the Ministry of Transport, and the Aviation Safety Directorate to testify regarding oversight and operational responsibility. This legislative investigation not only targets Boeing or Air India, but also directly addresses the blind spots in the National Aviation Safety and Risk Management System. Even though the preliminary report was powerful enough to shake the aviation world, the matter cannot be closed yet. In fact, it is only the beginning. The document released on 12/07/2025 was only the first step in the investigation process, summarizing the core information, data from the black box, and an overview of the events immediately before the moment the plane crashed. However, the official report, which is expected to uncover the whole truth, from technical details to legal aspects, is still being finalized and, according to plan, will be published in the next few months. According to a statement from the Air Accident Investigation Branch, AAIB, the full report will include detailed recommendations on design improvements, operational procedures, cockpit personnel training, as well as a complete reassessment of technical and human oversight mechanisms under the direct consultancy of the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. While waiting, a host of independent organizations, from aerospace engineers and system security experts to oversight committees within the legislature, are conducting parallel investigations, because AI-171 is not simply a technical malfunction. It has created an extremely dangerous precedent for global aviation. Just 2 switches flipped the wrong way, whether through human error or external control, and even the most advanced technology today cannot prevent an aircraft in takeoff from disaster. Most seriously, a wave of unprecedented outrage spread immediately after the preliminary report was released, and public trust in the aviation industry, especially in the Boeing 787, nearly collapsed completely. Less than 1 hour after the AAIB posted the report on its official website, Social media in India almost exploded. Keywords like Air India 787, fuel cutoff, deliberate crash quickly reached the top of the trending charts on X, Twitter, Reddit, and even technical forums like PP Rune. The public could not accept the fact that just because 2 fuel switches were turned off, more than 260 people died in less than 40 seconds. Relatives of the passengers expressed their outrage. They said it wasn't a technical error. Then whose fault is it? Why is no one taking responsibility? If it wasn't the pilot, and it wasn't a malfunction, then are our lives hanging on a single switch? Many families have declared they will sue Air India in international court. International public opinion was not silent either. A series of questions about the actual safety of the Boeing 787 began to emerge, especially as major airlines worldwide continue to operate this aircraft model at high frequency. On a French aviation forum, a veteran member bluntly stated, "If just 2 switches being turned off can bring down an entire Dreamliner, then absolute safety clearly does not exist." Under mounting public pressure, many aviation experts have spoken out, warning that this disaster is not an isolated accident, but a sign of serious gaps in design, operations, and safety control systems. Dr. Rajan Malik, former chief inspector of the DGCA, sharply remarked, "If a fuel cutoff occurs under completely stable flight conditions, without technical error, then this cannot be considered a personal mistake. This is a red alert warning for the entire flight control system." Many international experts have also jointly called on Boeing and the FAA to promptly issue a clear explanation regarding the risks related to the design of the fuel switch, as well as to update training standards for Dreamliner flight crews. Without decisive measures, AI-171 may not be the end, but the beginning of a new chain of disasters. Some comments went as far as directly criticizing Boeing for remaining silent, even as suspicions increasingly focus on a design flaw in the fuel system, a critical component tied to passenger safety. Dr. Anurag Sethi, an aerospace engineer who previously worked at Airbus and served as a technical advisor to ICAO, warned, "When both fuel switches are turned off almost simultaneously, just after the aircraft leaves the ground, under completely normal conditions, no vibrations, no alerts, no software errors, then clearly this cannot be random. It points to the possibility of a serious flaw in how the engine power protection system is designed." He emphasized, "In a highly automated system like the Boeing 787, fuel cutoff should be protected by multiple layers, from dual confirmation, mechanical locks, to digital verification. But currently, just a single action, or an unidentified signal, can shut down the entire engine system in less than 2 seconds, with no interception mechanism in place." At the same time, many experts also recalled that Boeing and the FAA had been warned since 2018 about the risk of the fuel switch automatically changing mode. But over the past 6 years, no design update, no revision requirement was issued. If Boeing knew and still didn't act, then this is no longer an error. This is a disregard for the lives of hundreds of people, said expert David Sloan, former accident investigator at the NTSB US, speaking to The Guardian. The investigation is continuously expanding, and more parties are being forced to get involved. As of now, the incident involving Flight AI-171 has gone beyond the usual scope of an aviation accident. Not only technical agencies, but also lawmakers, security forces, and cybersecurity experts are gradually joining the process of uncovering the truth. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau of India, AAIB, is closely coordinating with the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and an independent team of Boeing engineers to deeply analyze the black box data at a micro level. down to each electrical pulse, something that has never before been done in the history of civil aviation investigation in India. At the same time, the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, of India is also expanding its inquiry under the direction of deliberate act, including the possibility of interference with the control system, sabotage of software code, or even the transmission of fake signals from external sources. Cybersecurity units under the Ministry of Home Affairs have been deployed to inspect the entire ground communication system, internal maintenance networks, and data from all devices that had ever connected to the aircraft's electronics bay in the 72 hours before the crash. Notably, the Transportation Committee of the Indian Parliament has convened an emergency hearing, demanding that representatives from Air India, Boeing, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and major domestic airlines explain their fuel inspection procedures, emergency response training scenarios, and the mechanical design configuration of the 787 model. According to some internal sources, the investigation has moved beyond the question who turned off the fuel switches and into deeper and more alarming issues. The first question raised, does the Boeing 787's electronic control system, particularly the FADEC module responsible for engine management, contain a critical vulnerability that allows the fuel cutoff command to be executed without passing through any safety confirmation layer? Some engineers who were involved in the Dreamliner's initial development revealed that, during the early stages, there were fierce debates over software intervention in the thrust system, but these concerns were ultimately dismissed to meet commercial deadlines. The second question, did Boeing receive technical warnings from independent experts or even from the FAA itself, but failed to take comprehensive corrective action? In 2018, the FAA issued an Airworthiness Directive, AD, regarding the risk of the fuel switch being unintentionally disabled. But the content stopped at a recommendation for periodic inspection without mandating design changes. For Air India, information shows that the airline implemented the recommendation superficially, lacking cross-monitoring measures. In the years that followed, there were no software updates, nor were any hardware improvements mandatorily applied to the 787 fleet. And finally, the question that has shaken the entire aviation industry, is the explanation given in the preliminary report that the cause was merely two fuel switches being turned off, hiding a systemic flaw in technical design or governance processes. Many investigators believe that the absence of mention of abnormal signals, voltage interference, or discrepancies in sensor modules is a sign that many layers of data are still being withheld. The investigation is not only expanding, it is also becoming more dangerous by the day, because the deeper it goes, the more people realize that the focus is no longer just about Flight AI-171. It may only be the first crack in a far bigger problem, silently existing in hundreds of Dreamliners still flying across the skies every day. After 30 days of waiting, the official preliminary report has been released. No more speculation, no more vague assumptions. The reason the Boeing 787 plunged straight into the city of Ahmedabad just under 40 seconds after takeoff was an act never before recorded in aviation history. Two fuel switches were turned off almost simultaneously, causing complete loss of thrust. What enraged the world was not just that the plane crashed, but that it was not broken. There was no system failure, no emergency alert, and no mechanism had been designed to prevent such an act from happening. The reason given may sound simple, but it is that very simplicity that exposed a critical gap in the design, in the operation, and in the entire technical oversight system of modern aviation. Just one action or one unidentified signal left 242 lives with no chance of survival. At this point, the world is no longer just waiting for the final report. The world is waiting for a real answer. How could a plane worth hundreds of millions of dollars with a highly experienced flight crew be brought down by just 2 switches in exactly 2 seconds. If you found this video worth watching, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss future content. Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. And please note, what we present in this video is purely analytical, compiled from multiple perspectives. Always compare with various sources to gain a more complete and objective understanding.